They humiliate themselves so often, it should be a campaign slogan. And maybe it is. Watch this. Trump's FBI pick threatened to hunt journalists, reposted chainsaw fantasies, pushed pardons for January 6th rioters, and Republicans still want to hand him federal power. This is how fascism gets a badge.
Thanks, Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Patel. I remember January 6th. Colleagues running through our halls to flee the mob, colleagues shouting that rioters should be shot, us returning to our constitutional business through hallways cleared for us by automatic weapons carrying SWAT teams. None of you, none of us, said those violent rioters should be pardoned. A Republican colleague said such pardons would be hard to believe, even absurd. Your former colleague J.D. Vance said the violent rioters should not be pardoned. Even Jim Jordan said pardons would, and I quote, focus on all the people who didn't commit any violence. Well, Trump pardoned all of them. And there's a lesson in that. Every time you think Trump would never go that far, rethink that. We all seem to agree that violence against police is unacceptable, yet more than 600 people who physically attacked Capitol Police officers were just put back on the street, part of a 1,500-person personal Trump army, now out there with people who have proven themselves willing to do violence on Trump's call. In only 10 days, some are already back committing crimes. We've also tried as a committee together to address the dangers of illicit drug sales over the internet, and I assume we're all against murder for hire. But Trump also just pardoned a dark web operator sentenced to life in prison for trafficking illegal drugs online and accused of soliciting murders for hire. Those pardons, as Mr. Patel has said, are a mistake, but they are also a signal that we are entering a strange and dangerous time. That is the context for today's hearing. Warnings that the FBI could become Trump's enforcer, use the powers of law enforcement to stifle speech and dissent, punish political rivals of either party, and hand out free passes, get out of jail free cards to violent supporters are warnings we should heed. Here are some warnings of this nominee's Trump administration colleagues. Former Attorney General Bill Barr said, this nominee has virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency, end quote, and we would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the day-to-day operations of the Bureau. That's for the deputy position. Former CIA Director Gina Haspel was reported threatening to resign rather than have this nominee serve under her. John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, said, I didn't think he was qualified. I was forced to hire him. Trump's deputy national security advisor, the nominee's former supervisor, said, his ideas are ludicrous. He's absolutely unqualified for this job. He's untrustworthy. And it's an absolute disgrace to even consider an individual of this nature. That's from Republican appointees who worked with him. And here's what this nominee himself has said about using his office to prosecute journalists. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that a correct quotation, Mr. Patel?
Senator, that's a partial quotation.
But it's correct.
In part.
Regarding his publication of his enemies list, Mr. Patel proclaimed, the manhunt starts tomorrow, and reposted a video depicting him taking a chainsaw to his political enemies. Is that you, Kash Patel, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that meme.
Is that you reposting it, was my question.
And that's me at the top.
You said FBI agents were responsible for the violence on January 6th, and I quote you here, beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that what you said?
That's completely incorrect, and I appreciate the opportunity to address that.
I'll give you an opportunity in writing, but this is my time now.
Have at it.
An Inspector Attorney General investigation found that that was false. And you said we should impeach judges who rule against Donald Trump, who are, in your words, political terrorists. When this nominee tries to explain all this away, keep one thing in mind. He's testified under oath before a Colorado judge who presided over a Trump case in which he was a witness. And the judge found, and I'm quoting here, he was not a credible witness. His testimony is not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. That's from a judge. This is a dangerous time, and I ask all my colleagues to consider whether these plain comments by this person and by his own Trump administration colleagues should be given a blind eye, just overlooked, or whether, like the warnings of pardoning violent January 6 offenders, they're warnings to be heeded. There is an unfathomable difference between a seeming facade being constructed around this nominee here today and what he has actually done and said in real life when left to his own devices. Conduct shows character. And if you look at history, you see the danger of security chiefs in authoritarian regimes becoming the tools of political power. The characteristics that they often show are that they are vengeful, that they are grandiose, that they are intemperate, that they are partisan and blindly loyal, and that they are servile and won't say no. I'm afraid that the history of this nominee's conduct raises those warnings. And I yield my 1 second back.
Before Senator Cornyn, you said you'd like to explain something. I forget the point he made. You can do that now if you want to.
Simply this, Senator. In the collective, all of those statements are taken out of grotesque context. And anyone that thinks my 16 years of service isn't exemplary on how I would proceed if confirmed as FBI is intentionally putting false information into the public ether and creating more public discourse. The only thing that will matter if I'm confirmed as a director of the FBI is a de-weaponized, depoliticized system of law enforcement completely devoted to rigorous obedience of the Constitution and a singular standard of justice.
Before I call on Senator Cornyn, I'd like to say that we've heard about the January 6th pardons.
This hearing wasn't just disturbing, it was a damn warning flare. What we just witnessed is the normalization of political vengeance masquerading as law enforcement. As Trump's FBI nominee, Kash Patel, was confronted with a damning history of extremist rhetoric, authoritarian ambition, and flat-out unhinged behavior. And instead of disqualifying him, Republicans sat there like it was just another Tuesday. Let's start with the obvious. This is a man who claimed the FBI, not the rioters, was responsible for January 6th violence, called judges who ruled against Trump political terrorists who should be impeached, promised a manhunt against journalists who dared report facts about Trump's regime, reposted videos of himself chainsawing political enemies. Yes, you heard that right. Maintains a personal enemies list and brags about coming after people criminally or civilly. And the GOP wants him to run the FBI. Folks, this isn't law and order. This is fascism with a government paycheck. When Senator Whitehouse lays out the evidence, it's not partisan spin. It's a litany of facts, on the record, under oath, verified by judges and investigators. But what does Patel do? He doesn't deny reposting chainsaw threats. He doesn't disavow the manhunt list. He doesn't walk back calling federal judges terrorists. Nope, he just says, it's out of context. The last refuge of every political thug caught red-handed. Let's be crystal clear. This isn't about context. It's about character. And Patel has none. This is the same guy whose own boss, Trump's deputy national security advisor, called him ludicrous, unqualified, and untrustworthy. Bill Barr, yes, Bill Barr said Patel couldn't command respect from anyone inside federal law enforcement. Gina Haspel, Trump's own CIA director, was ready to resign if Patel was promoted. These aren't leftist bloggers. These are Trump's own people begging us to take the threat seriously. And yet, here he is, Trump's hand-picked FBI hitman, nominated for the top job, shrugging off an entire dossier of disqualifying behavior while pledging vague nonsense about depoliticizing the DOJ. Let's talk about that for a second. Every authoritarian wants you to believe that they are the solution to the division they helped create. Kash Patel is no different. He claims he wants to depoliticize law enforcement, but his entire record says otherwise. He literally said, we're going to go after the media, criminally or civilly. He built Trump's enemies list. He reposted a chainsaw execution fantasy. He fantasized about purging dissenters. And now he's pitching himself as the voice of restraint. That's not depoliticization. That's retribution wrapped in Orwellian doublespeak. And let's not forget the most grotesque piece of this hearing, the reminder that Trump pardoned more than 600 violent January 6th rioters, many of whom brutally assaulted Capitol Police officers. Some of them are already back on the streets committing new crimes. And Patel, he has never once condemned those pardons. Not here, not anywhere. Because he supports them. He supports the violent mob that tried to overturn our democracy. He supports Trump's power to pardon seditionists. And he supports a justice system where loyalty trumps law. Patel's nomination isn't an aberration, it's a declaration. A declaration that in Trump's second term, the FBI will no longer be a federal agency bound by rules. It'll be a political hit squad, led by a man who believes journalists are enemies, judges are terrorists, and accountability is betrayal. That is not the vision of a democracy. That is the blueprint of a police state. And the GOP, they're letting it happen. Because to them, democracy is only sacred if they win. The minute they lose, it becomes an obstacle. And Kash Patel is their demolition crew. This is why every confirmation matters, every hearing matters, because behind the suits and polite language is a full-blown authoritarian movement, and they're not even hiding it anymore. They're putting the arsonist in charge of the fire department, and they're daring you not to notice. If this hearing didn't set your hair on fire, you weren't listening. Kash Patel isn't just unfit for the FBI. He's an existential threat to everything the FBI is supposed to uphold. He's not about justice. He's about vengeance. He's not about law. He's about loyalty to Trump, to MAGA, to the fantasy of a one-party state that punishes its enemies and protects its cronies. The evidence isn't subtle. Judges say he's not credible. Trump officials say he's unqualified. His own statements show a man obsessed with silencing the press, purging opponents, and turning federal law enforcement into a weaponized extension of Trump's will. And when confronted with his record, he dodges, deflects, and blames context. But we've seen the context. We lived through it. We saw what happens when people like him get power. The choice is ours. Do we pretend this is normal, or do we call it what it is? Because history tells us that authoritarians don't start with camps and crackdowns. They start by putting people like Kash Patel in charge of federal power. We still have a choice. Let's make the right one before we don't. This isn't just another hearing. It's a flashing red siren. Slam that like button, subscribe now, and share this with everyone. Comment below. Should a man who reposts chainsaw threats run the FBI? The time to resist is right now.